What's going on? What's happening, everybody? What's happening? This your girl Tiffany coming through here, live in effect. I hope everybody is having a wonderful Thursday on March the 16th of 2023. I hope you guys having a good one. So today we're going to talk about Women's History Month, right? So March is Women's History Month, but we're going to take it to the underground level, and I like to get into the underground history about this. So we're going to deal with the underground queen, all right, who was considered as the Lady Al-Capone during her time, all right, during the 1930s and 40s, came up out of Washington, D.C., all right. So this woman was known for running the underground business, all right, black marketing business. And the person I'm going to be speaking of is Odessa Madre. Odessa Madre, okay? So before I get started, please make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, share the channel, and shout out to everybody that's been subscribing. Shout out to the new subscribers out there. I appreciate y'all so much. All right. So let's go ahead and get started with the information. Now, I tried to look up as much as I possibly can, but I did find articles or whatnot, and there is books that I recommend people to get. Okay, so I'm gonna use some of those books reference as well. All right, so now the first article I want to pull up. Let's go through this article right here. If y'all can see that screen right there, cool. And this comes from coffeeordie.com. All right, it's a magazine website. It says the rise and fall of Odessa Madre, the Lady Al-Capone. Right, this came out on February 27th, 2019, written by Matt Bartis. All right, that's the picture of her. So it starts off saying that Americans celebrate all races, religion, cultures, and creeds in order to remember, reflect, and learn from our ancestors' trials and tribulation. Since 1976, every U.S. president has recognized the month of February as Black History Month, an ode to Harvard historian Carter G. Woodson, who created Negro History Week 50 years prior. The focus promotes the contribution and achievements of African Americans to society. It says the month encourages people to remember the rebels, the war heroes, the people who were determined to make a difference and provoke change. The most notable and recognizable names are Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, for their influence in social justice, athletes like Jackie Robinson for breaking baseball color barrier, and Ernie Davis for becoming the first African American Heisman Trophy winner, and war heroes from all black units such as the 2nd Ranger Infantry Company during the Korean War and the Harlem Hellfires during World War One. All right, so Queen of the Washington Underworld. The outcasts, troublemakers, and misfits are just as noble but often overlooked for their contribution to American history. Odessa Madre was one of the outcast troublemakers. She was dubbed the Lady Al Capone of Washington, D.C., and the Queen of the Washington Underworld. But she often went by Madre, which is what appeared on the license plate on her brand new $10,800 Lincoln Continental that she purchased in 1968 after one of her many stints in the clean. All right, so that's a picture of her. And it says Madre was a peculiar figure in her community and operated in a male-dominated circle for nearly 50 years. She walked with an aura of class and sophistication, but she ran doggy establishment to fuel her fortune. She was highly intelligent, wise in the streets and by the books. After graduating from Washington Elite Dunbar Senior High School with honors in 1925, she began her life of crime at 17 because she knew that crime paid well. Referring to the other students at her school, Madre told Washington Post reporter Cortland Molly, "They called me the big black mother with television eyes." All right. So in the book, Sister Circle, Black Women and Work, the authors wrote to pursue a college education would have required Madre to join the Washington elite who reject her repeatedly. Moreover, she would have found the underground world far more accepting of her homosexuality. Okay. So Madre checked all the boxes to make her an outside in the upper class circle. She described as ugly, was on the heavier side, and her flamboyant personality rubbed some the wrong way. And yet she thrived in the criminal environment for decades, which is largely due to the fact she grew up amongst the split neighborhoods of Cowtown, a name given because cows frequent small alleyways and were seen on every street corner, half Irish and half black. The blacks and the Irish never fought each other, but they did fight together in the Great Rock Chunking Wars against the Italian and German kids who lived on the other side of town. All right. So it says these early relationships helped her crime syndicate grow into an empire because many of her Irish childhood friends went on to become captains, lieutenants, and powerful figures who filled the ranks of the Metropolitan Police Department. All right. So it goes on to say that Madre knew all the big name gangsters in the city, and her connection in the law enforcement looked the other way to her activities. She set aside ICE or protection payments and said to Millie or Milo, you know, I practically ran that damn police department. I don't know how many thousands of dollars I gave Pat O'Shea, a former superintendent of the police and childhood friend, to stay out on the streets. Another police detective, Robert Lee, who worked undercover Vice during the 1960s, said she was able to reign for so long because of her ability to keep the peace amongst crime lords and her overly generous pockets. She was known as a counselor in the mob. She mediated dispute between blacks and whites and a referee. She kept a lot of people from getting hurt, Lee told the Washington Post in a 1980 interview. Now, it's not very common that you got women that really run the underground business like her. Okay. So, because it sounded like she was an outsider, right? But at the same time, she won her way into the game. So she really got her rank up. Okay. So she won the respects of the people around her. So even with the fact that she grew up around the Irish people and she knew those who was in the position of authority, right? She was able to pay them to keep quiet, to keep them from arresting people and things like that. So she wanted to keep her operation going. Now, I know you guys heard about people paying off the police officer. Yes, it's very common. Now, you're not going to be able to get away with doing it with every cop, okay? Or every or every detective. Some people ain't going to allow you to pay them. As a matter of fact, some people don't even care about the money. They're going to take their job very seriously. So, there's people that make glorification about the game, getting caught up in the drug life and things like that, but they don't tell you the other side of the shit. They don't tell you how complicated it can get. You know what I'm saying? So they don't tell you that you have to play chess and not checkers, right? But see, one thing about the underground world shows us what we see in the mainstream world. It shows us the dirt that goes on behind the scene. And the dirt that go behind the scene, right? The people on the mainstream level try to cover up that dirt so everybody else don't know what's going on. But the people on the underground world is going to tell you exactly what it is. So they're going to always get the backlash. They're going to always get hated on because they know the game. They know exactly what goes on behind the mainstream. They know exactly what be going on because they working in conjunction with people that's in certain fields or a certain profession, whether they be doctors, lawyers, policemen, FBI's, whatever. They're working with these people. Okay. Some of these people are their clients. They build business relationship with them. And some they may have personal relationship with. Somebody who's into the real estate business, financial marketer, or whatever. They know. So they know how to get connect. See, they say money talk and bullshit walks. Money talk, bullshit walks. And that's a fact. All right, so let's go ahead and continue with the article. So down here, it says France in high places. During her heyday in the 1930s and 1940s, she was earning $100,000 a year running a bookkeeping gambling business on the side, controlled narcotics rackets, sold bootleg whiskey per shot or Jill at her jail joint and managed up to six brothels at a one time. Her most prominent venture was assuming notable celebrities at her infamous nightclub, Club Madre, located at 2204 14th Street Northwest. Today, their address houses a Bank of America and a smaller restaurant that offers Asian cuisine, a far cry from the atmosphere that once entertained the likes of rising jazz pianist Count Basie and Nat King Cole and professional boxer Joe Louis. Okay. So for those of you that don't know what a brothel is a whole house. So a brothel is a whole house. So she ran six whole houses. Okay, and I have to use that terminology, right? I had to use layman terms. She ran six whole houses. So she was making a lucrative income. See, women like that back in the day, when they were bosses or anything like that, one of the main business they had were brothels. Because they knew that there was going to always be some male clients that wanted to come in and get their rocks knocked off. And so they knew that they could make the profit. So they would always be the madam. Okay, they would always be the madam. And that's what she was. She was a madam. All right. Okay. So it goes on to say, if you show them that money, if you got a wide honey, they'll suck up to you like you was a Tootsie Roll. So Madre flooded her light, her style with charisma, leaving a wake of women or yellow gals within her entourage dangling from her arms when she entered the room. One rumored fling suggests that raunchy, ahead of her time comedian Mons Mabley and Madre were lovers behind the scene, while others suggest they were like sisters. Her extravagant parties would make the Wolf of Wall Street blush. One police source that spoke in court while monitoring two courts ordered wiretaps in Madre's home later said, as a matter of course, Miss Madre set out a number of bowls of cocaine, heroin, and marijuana for her guests' pleasure. But when prodded in a later interview, Madre corrected their assessment. Everybody knows that I can't stand them reefers. All right. So and here's another article. All right, so here's another article, but let me go back and continue on with this article right here. So now going down to where it says downfall. Okay, so even though Madre supported the poor with gifts, clothes, shoplifting by boosters, and wrapped nicely for disadvantaged children, a handful of cash, people started taking advantage of her kindness towards the end of her reign. The free passes from her hiring help in the police department were exposed by 1952 when the Kefauver Committee cracked down on the corruption and Madre's underbosses funnel payments were revealed. Somebody had to give them money, Madre once said. If anybody was lucky enough to be able to get protection, it was because they was lucky enough to have my recommendation to the police. That is how it worked. I would tell the police if you were okay and if it was going to be worth their while. Then you give me the money and I will make the drop. They wouldn't take it from anybody else. Hmm. All right. So in this article here, which comes from Washington Post, it speaks on her past. Okay, so once the Queen of Washington underworld, Odessa Madre, dies penniless, they buried the Queen of the Washington underworld Tuesday. So this came out on March the 8th of 1990. All right, so she died in 1990. So it said, Modessa Madre, one of the richest, most flamboyant, big-hearted hustler who ever worked the shadier side of the nation capital, died penniless 2 weeks ago at 83. She was the Al Capone Washington, said Paul Kinney, 65, one of a few old friends who attended her burial at the Harmony Memorial Park in Landover. Kenny said that when he got out of jail in 1958 after serving more than 13 years for a robbery conviction, it was Madre who gave him a room and bought him new suits until he got on his feet. She was always helping out people. In 1930s and 1940s, she built an empire of joints that served liquor by shots and broady houses. Her headquarters was Club Madre, right? In those days, when Billie Holiday, Duke Ellington, or Count Basie would appear there, Odessa would make her big interest. All 260 pounds of her shrouded in mink and leading an entourage of several beautiful girls for sale. A madam with a half a dozen bawdy houses and 20 ladies in her employ, she became so rich that her shopping sprees made headlines. She was also generous. She loaned a lot of needy people money as well as provided contact for gambling and drugs. Robert Lee, a former vice squad detective, told the Washington Post in the 1980s. She knew practically every big time gangster worldwide. She was what they call a counselor in the mob. Of course, again, she mediated between blacks and white. In 1961, she was arrested with a 1 ounce bag of cocaine and sentenced to 7 years in prison. She was arrested again in 1975 on a gambling charge. People began to take advantage of her, said Kenny, and she lost her house and all her money. Before her death, she lived at 10th and R Streets Northwest in what one friend described as the worst ghetto in Washington. When she died, they waited 8 days for a family member to claim her body. Her best friends were able to raise only $51 for her funeral before W.H. Beacon of the Beacon Funeral Home on 14th Street Northwest said he decided to make sure she wouldn't be buried in a cheap welfare casket. She helped a lot of people. She deserved better. She gave me money to bury folks through the years, Bacon said. At Madre's funeral, one of her friends, Bethel Carnegie, sang a rendition of Frank Sinatra "My Way" because that was her. She did everything her way, whatever she did. Sam Courtney, a photographer who said he had known Madre since 1939, said people look up to her because she was rich and she had power. She was a legend, she was. Madre had even bragged to a reporter a few years ago that at one time she had so many police officers on her payroll that she practically ran that damn police department. And it goes on to say, "You say, was it worth it, child? You wonder, does crime pay?" Madre asked. "I tell you, yes, it pays a hell of a lot of money. And money's something I don't care who you are. You got money, you can get a lot of doors open because there's always some larcenous heart who's going to listen to you." All right, so based on that information, so she passed away in 1990 and she didn't have anything left in her name. She was dead broke by the time she passed. So she went from being a boss to being somebody that died with nothing or no inheritance. Now, have they not found out who her relatives was or who could claim her body? She would have been buried over to the state, or well, not to the state, but be buried. The city would have had taken over, and they would have sent her off anywhere they wanted to send her. But somebody was able to step in and claim her. But this is what happens when you become somebody big in the industry, and all of a sudden you no longer have that name or the accolades anymore, so you become forgotten. And that's pretty much what happened. She became forgotten. Like a lot of people don't recognize her. You know, a lot of people would never hear about her. They'll hear about Madam Stephanie St. Clair before they hear about this woman, Odessa Madre. Right? Okay, so I want to show you guys some books. All right, so I have a book. I have a couple of books that I want to share with you guys, and some of the passage I might go over. All right, so this first book right here is called "The Crime Buff's Guide to Outlaw Washington D.C." by Ron Franscales or Francel. All right, so "The Crime Buff's Guide to Outlaw Washington D.C." by Ron Francel. Okay, so basically, he talk about what was going on in Washington D.C. during that time period. All right. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to share some information from archive.org. So if you guys need to just look into it, it's an online library website where you can find plenty of books where you want to borrow, or if you want to borrow for like a day, or for like an hour, or if you want to borrow for 2 weeks, you can do that as well. Okay, so I recommend this to a lot of people. So the Odessa file, right? The former Club Madre was at 2204 14th Street, Northwest or GPS. Okay. So this coming from the Bluff Guide to Washington D.C., the book that I showed you guys. All right. So let's see what they saying here. So pretty much it says the same thing that I've been saying, but down here it goes on to say, nevertheless, Odessa Madre died penniless in 1990 at the age of 83. Friends paid her $51 funeral bill. She was buried at Landover National Harmony Memorial Park, 7101 Chef Road. Her unmarked grave is in the Lily section, grave 80 or GPS 38.90471. Okay. So according to that information, her book her gravesite is unmarked, so they don't have a name for her, but they know where she's located at. Okay. All right. So right here, oh, this is interesting. It says Odessa Madre was bigger than life. She grew up in the black ghettos on the poor side of town, but for 50 years, starting in the 1930s, she was one of the district's most flamboyant, resourceful, and successful organized crime figures. So it goes on to say over almost 5 decades, Madre was busted 37 times or 30 times on 57 charges and spent 7 years in prison, but still got fabulously rich. And the crown jewel in her nefarious kingdom was her headquarters, Club Madre. All right, so this woman was busted 30 times, okay, and she got hit with 57 charges. All right, but yeah, see, yeah, if you guys want to, you can check out this book. Uh, Again, let me show y'all the title once again. Then I'm going on to the next one. So the information I was reading to you guys comes from this book right here, "The Crime Buff Guide to Outlaw Washington D.C." Right now, the next one, the next one is dealing with the pipe dream. We all familiar with the pipe dreams, right? So, Pipe Dream Blues: Racism and the War on Drugs by Clarence Hussein. Okay, so let's see what this book talking about. All right, so according to this book, all right, so according to this book, check this out. Let's look up some more information on this. So, of course, it talks about the fact that she ran the club. All right, going down, it says Madre ties with a key police official, including Police Superintendent Pat O'Shea and Captain John Murphy represented more than just business, although she grew up in the fashionable black neighborhood of Leroy Park near Howard University. She spent most of her time on the streets of the Irish community of of Washington called Cowtown with many of the children who would later join the police force. She and other black youth had formed alliance with the Irish children, including O'Shea, Murphy, and others, in turf fights against the Italian and German kids. Okay, her ability to survive during her youth was conditioned by the segregation that existed in the district during that time. The black community was restricted to a few choice neighborhoods where they could gather and socialize. In the mid to the late 1950s, as the walls of segregation came down within the nation capital, many middle class blacks began to frequent downtown establishment, and Madre saw her monopoly straining. However, Madre retained her popularity because she was generous to the community. She made loans or donations to those in need and bought clothes for children whose parents could not afford them. She would also act as a mediator. All right. So after a series of arrests and incarceration for drug possession and number running in the 60s and 70s, Madre spent most of the 80s living a quiet life. She died in February 1990. It goes on to say practically penniless. It took several days before someone claimed her body, and in the end, a local funeral parlor donated a service and a casket. So it goes on to talk about Napoleon. Nat Turner remembers the 30s well. Turner, a spry and energetic man, has led a variety of multi-vocational life. He has been an accomplished jazz musician, playwright, writer, radio host, and his words an addict criminal. So Turner performed at Club Madre during its heyday and knew the legendary Madre. Turner said that the two type of addicts existed during that time. Addict criminals like himself committing crimes solely in order to feed their drug habits. They shoplifted, burglarized, and generally did only petty property crimes for the most part. They did not sell drugs in any large quantities, and many resented being called pusher. Criminal addicts, on the other hand, were hardcore criminals who had become addicts to drugs. They committed serious felonies, and some did become full-time dealers. All right. So it says Turner also recalled the pervasive police corruption that exploited and perpetuated crime in the black community. When dope houses were negligent or late in their payoffs, the police would go to the shooting galleries, houses where addicts shot up, take the dealer's dope, and give it to the junkies. Before the 1950s, the police would often arrest drunks, but other addicts were seldom bothered. The drug community, for the most part, blended into the community as a whole and was neither violent nor a significant threat to the youth. It says one of the most significant developments of this period was the founding in 1949 of the Washington Area Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse, known then as the Washington Area Council on Alcoholism, by a group of volunteers seeking a better understanding of the causes of an effective solution to alcoholism. As illegal narcotics use became a large problem in the early 60s, Wakanda applied its method and tactics to the drug issue. Currently headed by Joe Wright, Wakanda has been in the forefront of region-wide substance abuse work, including training substance abuse counselors and running a drug hotline. All right, so that's that passage. Pretty much about Miss Madre and her life. So you guys can look that book up. It's called Pipe Dream Blues. Okay, and let's see. And one more book that I recommend y'all to look into. One more book. This book right here is called Sex Workers Psyche, Psychics and Number Runners, Black Women in New York City Underground Economy. Okay, by LaShawn Harris. So I recommend you guys get that book. As a matter of fact. So I won't be going through all of this, but I'm gonna read some of the passage. All right, so this comes from chapter 1, but it says, I was hustling for him, but he beat me. The challenges of informal work. So the visibility of African American female informal economy workers and consumer engender New York's underground labor market. Black women stroll red lights district, smoke cigarettes and drink whiskey at dance halls, socialize and hustle on the streets, and mingle freely with men. As laborers, they're present on the streets, in nightclubs, and in spaces traditionally reserved for men, widening prevailing images of urban women and their labor. Functioning in public spaces neither designed nor controlled by women, Black women maneuver as best they could to make a place for themselves. In doing so, they envisioned and created a world that included and allowed them to claim space as laborers and consumers, as wage earners, and often the breadwinners of their families. Black women felt entitled to explore and take part in urban amusement without approval from relatives, spouses, significant others, or urban reformers. Why shouldn't I go out sometime if I work? Lay minute, 119-year-old domestic willing to ignore political activist rhetoric on the potential dangers of city life. Many believe that earning a living wage granted them authority over their whereabouts, socializing, how they spend their leisure time. Laying claims to urban spaces, Black women, underground laborers, when they could assert control over their social, laboring, and sexualized females, laborers navigated the city underground economy sectors and ensured their livelihoods, and in some cases, financial success, and more importantly, contested male patriarchy. All right. So again, now if you guys are wondering where I was reading that from, I was reading from this particular book here. So I was reading from this book. So I was reading chapter 1 from this particular book, and I would recommend you guys get it for your own personal usage or read it for yourself. All right. So, and that's all I have. But I want to say this. I really want to say this. Regarding to women and the underground business, especially, when they become what they call sex workers now, it's a lot of pros and cons to that. There's a lot of pros and cons. Okay. Now, me personally, I have my own position on that. I don't recommend any female to get involved in that lifestyle, but I do understand because everybody's not going to get a job. Everybody's not going to get a high paying job. So some people going to have to do what they have to do. And again, the underground world exposes what goes on in the mainstream. See, we looking at from what goes on the outside, but we don't know what's going on the inside. You know what I'm saying? See, those individuals that in the mainstream, they put on a facade, but when nobody is looking or when they're away from their job or whatever, or their occupation, then they go to the underground world. One thing that Manly P. Halls put out there, right? He was talking about the primitive man and the civilized man. He said the civilized man tried to act so civilized, right? Tried to live up to the standard of society, okay? But the primitive man knows what's going on and he is disgustingly honest. That means he is disgustingly honest, meaning that he's so brutal and honest about a lot of things. So he's the most honest person because he knows a lot that's going on. He can see beyond the facade. Okay? So these people that lives in the underground world or do underground business, they show you exactly what really goes on. They show you exactly how things really are. Especially when you're talking about corporate level, white collar, they're showing you exactly what is really going on. Now, again, I don't condone a lot of the stuff. I don't condone the prostitution. I don't really condone people selling drugs. But it's out there. And everybody's not going to get an opportunity to work. I hate when folks say that, oh, there's something for everybody. Yeah, there's something for people, but there's limit opportunity for people as well. And we have to be honest with ourselves, especially it depends on the economic system that you're living in. Everybody's not going to be so-called successful. Everybody's not going to make lucrative income on the mainstream level. So some people are going to hustle on the side. Some people are going to do illegal business. Some people are going to put themselves at a high risk at all costs to get money. Some people are going to scam. They don't do whatever it takes for them to get to the money. Because money is the object of the game. It don't matter what. It don't care about your creed. It don't care about your race. It don't care about your culture. It don't care about your religious status. It don't care about nothing. It's the object. Okay? Everybody's going to gravitate towards it. And anybody that says, well, it's not about the money, they're lying. Because how else you going to survive? How else you going to survive? It's about the money. You got to have money to survive in this world, especially if you want to live a particular lifestyle, you got to have the money for it. But also, let's keep it real. Let's keep it honest. Money is an illusion too. Now, what do I mean by money being an illusion? Because money is a creation from man. What we call money is just a symbolism. What we call money is just a symbolism. If you take away the concept of money, all it is paper and metal and plastic. Paper, metal, and plastic. Plastic means debit card because debit cards are made out of plastic. The currency that we use, the $10 bills, the $50 bill, $5 bills, those are paper. And your quarters, dime, nickels, and pennies, all of those are metals and copper. Well, copper is basically metal. That's all it is. So those things don't even have value. The only reason why they have value is because humans gave value to them. Humans gave value to the dollars, gave value to the coins, gave value to the debit cards, credit cards, and gave the meaning to them. That's why they have value. But if there was no value to it, would it mean something? No, it would not mean anything. So at the end of the day, we call up on the symbolism. As opposed to the physicality, we're looking at the symbolic meaning of what it means to have money. That's what we call up on. But anyways, I just want to share that. I hope you guys have a good one. So until next time, a peace and power elevation be to all of you. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and make sure you like and subscribe to my channel. Hit the notification bell. Until next time, peace. All right.